Welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive. Today, we're going to get into something pretty fascinating
Yeah.
and kind of maybe a little bit sad, too.
Right.
The disappearance of languages
Mm.
all across the world.
Yeah.
So,
Big topic.
huge topic. We've actually got a lot of different sources for this one.
Oh, cool.
We've got a PBS documentary,
Okay.
a whole Wikipedia deep dive, and then even
Oh.
some YouTube videos we found.
Nice.
And I think our goal is to really help you understand, like, why is this happening?
Yeah.
What do we actually lose when a language disappears?
Mm.
And then what's being done to try and, like, bring these voices back, you know?
It really is a big deal. I mean, imagine for a second, like, being the last person on Earth
Yeah.
who can speak your language.
Wow.
You know, that's what this guy, Charlie Mungle, is going through.
Yeah.
In Australia. It's in the documentary. It's crazy. He might be the last speaker of this language called Amerdak.
That's a powerful thought. And it's so sad because he's not the only one facing this. Experts think we could lose more than half of all the languages in the world by 2100.
Oh, wow.
Like, that's over 6,000 languages we know about.
Yeah, and that's more than just words disappearing, you know? Each one of those languages is a whole system of knowledge built up over generations.
Right.
It's really cultures facing being forgotten completely.
Yeah, there was this quote from the documentary that really stuck with me.
Oh, yeah.
It said something about each language having, like, its own poetry, its own way of, like, seeing the world and capturing the whole inner life of a people.
That's beautiful.
Isn't it? Like, when you lose a language, it's kind of like losing this massive library of human experience.
100%. And in those libraries, you find these really unique things, you know,
Yeah.
ways of understanding medicine, the environment, even like ancestral practices that have been passed down.
Mm.
The Wikipedia article talked about how language is like this vessel for cultural memory, you know,
Yeah,
connects people to their heritage, to
Yeah.
their identity.
it's true.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, like, what's causing all of this loss, though? Is it just something that happens naturally? Or are there, like, specific things pushing it along?
Well, the PBS documentary and even some of those YouTube videos pointing to a few things like
Right.
globalization and technology.
Mhm.
They've kind of helped a few languages like English, Mandarin, Spanish
Right.
become super dominant.
Yeah, I mean, when those languages are tied to things like getting a good job or fitting in,
Right.
you can see why people might feel pressured to switch over.
Exactly. And that can lead to what we call language shift, where over time, families stop using their native language.
Oh, wow.
And, you know, the Wikipedia article went deep on this, and they had this thing called the UNESCO scale of language endangerment.
I remember seeing that.
Yeah.
Can you remind me how it works?
Sure. So UNESCO uses this 6-point scale,
Okay.
and it goes from languages that are like totally safe because everyone speaks them,
Right.
all the way to extinct,
Right.
which means no one's left who speaks it.
So sad.
Yeah.
Where would a language like that Emerdak one fall?
Oh, that one would probably be critically endangered.
Oh, wow. Meaning the youngest speakers are like grandparents,
Oh, gosh.
and they don't even use it all the time.
It really puts it in perspective, huh?
It does.
How fragile these languages are.
Yeah.
The documentary actually brought up some pretty disturbing reasons for this, too.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's not always a natural thing or even a choice, you know?
Right?
The language revitalization article on Wikipedia
Mm-hmm.
showed some times when there were actual policies to get rid of minority languages.
Ugh, that's awful. Like, what kind of things?
Well, one really bad example is from right here in the U.S.
Really?
Yeah. There was a time when Native American kids were sent to boarding schools.
Yeah.
And they'd get punished for speaking their own languages.
No way.
Yeah, it was a way to try and erase their culture and make them assimilate.
Wow. It makes you realize that this whole idea of languages disappearing is a lot more complicated than just people making choices or even technology changing.
It really is. The Wikipedia article talked about colonization as a big factor, too.
Right. Colonization brought all these dominant languages with it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it disrupted the way people live for centuries.
Totally. And we're still seeing those effects today.
And then you add the whole economic side of things.
Yeah.
The documentary mentioned how in some parts of the world,
Yeah.
people feel like they have to learn a dominant language
Mm-hmm.
just to get ahead. You
Of
know,
course.
it's like they're forced to choose between their heritage and their future.
Such a tough choice. And so many communities are facing that.
Yeah. But even with all that, there are some incredible people and communities fighting back,
Yeah.
finding ways to bring these languages back from the brink.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It gives me hope that even with all these challenges, people are finding ways to protect their heritage.
Yeah,
It's inspiring. I'm really interested to learn more about what they're doing.
me too.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
really is a bright spot in all of this. Like,
Yeah.
where are we seeing some of the most successful efforts?
Well, one that's really inspiring is Wales. They actually featured it in the documentary.
Okay.
They've managed to make Welsh and English totally equal in their society.
Wow. That's amazing. I mean, they're using it in schools, the government,
Yeah.
even hip-hop.
I know, it's incredible.
Seems like they've really found a way to make it relevant to people's lives today.
Exactly. And that's so important, right? It's not about preserving a language like it's a museum piece.
Right.
It's about making it something people actually use and love.
Totally.
Yeah.
It feels like that ownership, that pride in their language is what's driving it.
Yeah, for sure. The documentary showed how the Welsh people chose to learn and live in Welsh,
Mm-hmm.
and that's made all the difference.
And it's not just Wales.
Yeah.
You know, that Unearthing Ancient Tongues video on YouTube,
Oh, yeah.
it reminded me that technology can actually help revitalize languages too.
It's true.
It's kind of ironic, right? Because it's often blamed for causing the problem in the first place.
It's funny how that works. So how do you think technology can help?
I don't know.
Yeah,
It's a good question.
I know.
What are some ways?
Well, think about all the online communities now.
Yeah.
People can connect with other speakers no matter where they live.
That's true.
And there are tons of apps and websites for learning languages.
Yeah.
That makes them way more accessible to younger generations.
Right.
Even just being able to record elders speaking the language
Mm-hmm.
can be huge for preserving it for the future.
It's like technology is coming full circle almost.
In a way,
The
yeah.
things that were threatening these languages
Right.
are now helping to bring them back.
Definitely gives you hope.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of hope, the Wikipedia article on language revitalization talked about this cool model
Oh, yeah.
by this guy named Joshua Fishman.
Okay. What's the gist of it?
So it's an 8-stage model.
Hmm.
And it basically says that the most important thing is to start with the home and the community.
Okay.
Like, get the people who are most connected to the language to use it.
Makes sense.
Then you can build from there.
Sort at the heart of it all.
Exactly. And we see this happening all over. The Wikipedia article talked about the Maori language in New Zealand.
Right. Right.
They've got these language nests.
Language nests.
Yeah, they're like these immersion preschools to teach the language to little kids.
That's awesome. What other examples were there?
Well, there's Hebrew, which is crazy because it was revived as a spoken language after centuries.
Seriously?
Yeah, it was mostly used for religious stuff before.
Wow. And closer to home, there are groups trying to bring back the Wampanoag language.
Oh, cool.
They're
Yeah.
using old written records. It's pretty amazing what they're doing.
It sounds like a real mix of efforts, some coming from the communities themselves and some from bigger organizations.
Yay.
You know what I find really interesting is this whole question of like, how much should a revived language stay the same
Yeah.
versus like how much should it change with modern influences?
It's tough. The Wikipedia article went into that a bit.
It's a really interesting debate, right?
Yeah.
On one side, you have what some people call the traditionalists.
Okay.
They think it's super important to preserve the language exactly as it was.
I can see why.
They're worried that if you borrow too much from other languages, it'll become something totally different.
Yeah. If it changes too much, is it even the same language anymore?
That's the big question. And then on the other side,
Yeah.
you have people who think some change is inevitable
Okay.
and maybe even good. They think language is a living thing and it has to evolve to survive.
I guess finding that middle ground is key.
For sure.
Yeah.
How do you balance respecting the past and making sure the language has a future?
Yeah. How do these different views play out in the real world?
Well, the Wikipedia article had some good examples. In Hawaii,
Mm-hmm.
people are worried that what they call Neo-Hawaiian has changed too much because of English.
Oh, wow.
They think it's drifted too far from traditional Hawaiian.
So that's like a case for keeping it pure.
Yeah. Are there examples where adapting worked?
I was just thinking that.
Well, Basque is a great one.
Sure.
They made a standard version of the language that mixed parts of different dialects, but it still kept its identity.
Interesting. And it's been successful.
Yeah, really successful.
So it seems like there's no right answer for everyone.
No?
Each community has to figure out what's best for them and their language.
Exactly. What do they value the most? It's a tricky balance.
It really makes you think. What are your thoughts on all of this?
Tough question.
Do you lean more towards tradition or adaptation?
Yeah, it's a tough one. It really shows how complicated all this language stuff is.
It is. You're always trying to
Oh.
find that balance, you
Yeah.
know, letting it evolve, but not losing what makes it special.
Right. Each community has to decide what that means for them.
Totally. Before we go too deep on that, maybe we should step back for a second
Yeah, good idea.
and recap what we've learned.
Okay, so first off, the number of languages disappearing is just huge.
It's crazy. We could lose thousands in the next few decades.
Yeah, and each one is like a whole different way of seeing the world.
Exactly. And we talked about why that's such a big deal. It's not just words.
Right.
It's knowledge cultures, ways of life.
And all connected to these languages.
Yeah. But even with all that bad news, there are people doing amazing things to bring them back.
Yeah, like in Wales. Wales is a great example. They made a real effort to make their language part of everyday life.
Right. And it worked.
It did. And technology is helping too.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird twist.
It is.
But all these online communities and apps and digital archives, they're helping people connect with their languages and making them more accessible.
Especially for younger generations.
So that gives me hope.
Me too. But we can't forget the challenges still out there.
Right, like globalization and the pressure to speak certain languages, those are still huge factors.
Which is why it's so important to talk about this.
100%.
Yeah.
The more we understand, the more we can appreciate all these different languages and help the people trying to save them.
Exactly. Even just spreading the word.
Every little bit counts.
Before we wrap up, I wanted to mention this cool thing I read.
Oh, yeah.
It was in that Weymouth Stories language article on Wikipedia.
Okay.
It talked about this language in Poland called Wymasories.
Wymasories.
Yeah, I know, crazy, right? A language in Poland that's not Polish.
So what is it? Get this. It's actually a West Germanic language.
Wow.
But it's got Polish mixed in and maybe even Dutch and Old English.
That's wild.
I know, it's like a total linguistic mystery.
It sounds like it.
But it shows you how much amazing stuff is out there.
It does. It makes you wonder what else we haven't discovered yet.
It really does.
Yeah.
So what can we do to help, to protect these languages?
Well, we might not all be language experts.
Right.
But we can still do things like learning a new language.
Yeah, that's a great idea. That's fun and good for your brain.
Totally. And if you really want to get involved, you could volunteer with the Language Project.
Oh, yeah, good point.
There are organizations all over doing amazing work.
And even just talking to people about this issue.
Definitely.
Raising awareness.
Yeah. The more people know, the better.
Because every language we save is a win for everyone.
It really is.
Yeah.
It shows that we value all these different cultures and ways of life.
Well said. It's been a great deep dive today.
Yeah, it has.
Thanks for listening, everyone. We hope you learned something new and maybe even feel inspired to go explore the world of languages a little more.
And until next time, keep learning, keep exploring, and keep listening to all the amazing stories out there.
See you next time.